Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Great America Show. I'm John Fawcett in for Lou Dobbs. Well, Congress is back to work this week after the Independence Day holiday, and there's a lot to get done in the few weeks they have left before they go on summer recess. Among the many issues, further investigations into the Biden crime family, Joe Biden's cognitive decline, the Merrick Garland contempt vote, and much more. To take all this up and much more, we asked Congressman Tim Burchett of Tennessee to join us today to give us an update on what's going on and how we go forward before Congress heads into summer session. Congressman, thanks for joining us today.
Thank y'all for having me. It's always a pleasure being on with you.
So let's start first with the Merrick Garland contempt vote. Where does that stand right now? Will you be able to get it through before you head off for summer recess, or will it be something that will be tabled till September?
Well, a few weeks ago, we passed a resolution to hold him in contempt. And of course, he refused to comply with 2 congressional subpoenas, and hand over the tapes, the president's interview with Robert Hur. The thing about that is we don't, everybody says, we got the transcripts. Well, we haven't, this place hasn't been truthful about anything. We don't know if those transcripts are accurate or not. We don't know, what I'd like to know is if he had any legal advisors in there and we're telling him, oh, you can't say that. Don't say this, don't say that, that kind of thing. And also, you don't know where the commas are and where the periods are in the conversation, and things can be taken out of context. And when he said that he's basically he's just an old man, he's not fit to stand trial. That to me is, that's pretty damning. He needs to come before us. But there are 3 types of contempt of Congress: criminal, civil, and inherent. And inherent is the one we're going after because the other 2 require too many trips to the courthouse. It's the bureaucracy would be just so much it'd never happen. And Luna, she's done a good job with this thing, and she's held on like a bulldog on this thing. And I'm looking forward to get this thing moving. Now, will it happen? I don't know. We haven't had the guts to do a whole lot. Either party, Congress doesn't do a whole lot. I think it's time to jerk us into this thing screaming. Of course, it is an election year, so maybe Republicans will get a little bit of guts and do something that we can hang our hat on. I would think bringing the attorney, and people are like, oh, you're going to bring him in leg irons. This is archaic. Well, they just go get him. And the last time they did is they put somebody up in a nice hotel somewhere or a motel, whichever the case may be. So I don't see that being a real problem, but I do have a problem with them just constantly thumbing their nose at Congress. And that's exactly what they're doing. You
constantly have the Democrats, repeating nobody's above the law. We got the Supreme Court ruling last week. Trump has immunity. And all you hear is nobody's above the law. No president should be above the law. Well, why is there an attorney general above the law? Why is there this double standard? You had Peter Navarro get picked up in an airport, who's in jail right now in leg irons. You had Steve Bannon head to jail last week. I mean, why don't the Republicans fight like the Democrats fight?
We don't have any guts, and we're not held accountable. And I think we're complacent in our little, these guys are chairman or, chairman of the subcommittee on bean beetles or something, and they go home strutting around about all that. And they don't do a whole heck of a lot. Dadgummit, people are sick of it. And I would hope that they would start voicing their opinions about that, because this era of compromise, that's why we're $35 trillion in debt. The days of negotiating are over. They always want to compromise when they're in the majority or in the minority, not when they're in the majority. And that's what you're seeing time and time again with this stuff. We haven't had the guts to vote for cutting funding and other things. So I would think at some point we will get that. And I would hope, and part of the trouble too, I told Lou this once before, but these guys and gals, they go home and they throw the red meat out at the Lincoln Day or Reagan Day, now the MAGA Day dinners these chicken dinners we go to, and I've been to a bunch of them. And then they come back up here, and then they continuously boat us down the river. And I would hope that some of these folks, get your grandkids to show you how to use that computer, but look what's in some of these votes that we're making and some of the votes we refuse to take. And I think you'd change your mind. And that's the one hope I have about President Trump. They will be afraid not to do this stuff, not to make these cuts, and not to enforce these areas of the Constitution.
Well, in your leader, Mike Johnson, he's sort of been sitting lame duck now for the last month or so. Hasn't exactly been the most popular Speaker of the House. He comes after Kevin McCarthy, so those are big shoes to fill. But what has Mike Johnson been doing? We haven't heard a word from him. Now we hear from him about this SAVE Act where the Democrats want to fight against. Imagine this. They want to fight against making sure everyone who's voting is a citizen. But going back to Mike Johnson, what has he done? Do you see Mike Johnson still holding that speaker role in January? I mean, does he have the support of the conference? Does he have the support of President Trump? What's your take on that?
Well, President Trump seems to enjoy his support. I think part of the fact is we're down to 3 Republicans. We've got a bunch of these guys that ran on principle, and then when they're offered a better gig, they get out in a hurry. They bailed on us and left us in a bad spot. And then you've got 20 or so decided not to run. I think that's the right. That's the telling thing right there. That they're not going to be able to operate under this new regime, so to speak. And so, he's got 3 or 4 votes, 3 or 4 between him and the Democrats. He has to be careful some days of even going to the floor, or he can be deposed, because so many Republicans out, you have deaths in families, and right. Life just happened. So it's a touch and go situation every day. And if I was him, I worry about the people that he has around him, because he kept so many of his predecessors' people, and that to me. That's because his predecessor sure wasn't supportive of him becoming speaker. Right. And it's just everywhere you turn, there's somebody sniping at him. So I would hope at least these last 22 days or so of session that we have, that we do what we said we're going to do, and we end on a good note, because naming post offices is not why most of us came to Washington this week. And I'm naming a post office eventually, I hope, but that's just in the course of business. There's a lot of other important legislation that's moving.
We're talking to Congressman Tim Burchett of the great state of Tennessee. We're coming right back. President Biden says he's staying in the race, and he's tired of hearing from all these elites who are telling him to get out. We're going to get Tim Burchett's take when we return. Stay with us.
Wellness Company and their doctors are medical professionals you can trust. And their new medical emergency kits are the gold standard when it comes to keeping you safe and healthy. This medical emergency kit contains an assortment of life-saving medications, including ivermectin, Z-Pak. Rest assured, knowing that you have emergency antibiotics, antivirals, and antiparasitics on hand to help you and your family stay safe from whatever life throws at you next.
We're back talking with Congressman Tim Burchett of the great state of Tennessee. Congressman, Joe Biden said today, he sent a letter to Congress, to the Dem members of Congress who are calling for him to drop out. He says he's tired of hearing the elites telling him to get the heck out of the race. What's your take on this?
Well, the elites, if you look who's running the Democratic Party, that's who is running the Democratic Party, the elites. I think he's gone to a think tank or something, and they've chosen some words for him. I thought it was also interesting. I've seen it once. I haven't seen it anymore. I'm wondering if the state-run media has shut this out. He says, I look forward to a fight at the convention or something like that. If he's going to get into a fight at convention, it might be the first time I watch a convention in decades, because they usually are just a show anyway. But I think it's falling apart. It's coming unraveled. He doesn't know. He's in the bunker, and they're running up the steps of the Capitol with pitchforks and torches, because I just don't see the support there. You saw ranking Democrats pull off of him, 5 of them. Seth Moulton, who's sort of in the middle of that situation. He's a Marine and up-and-coming leader. And then you see Jerry Nadler saying he doesn't need to run again. I mean, you don't get much more swamp than that. Right. And so I would just it's going to be interesting to watch. I mean, it serve our needs most if he'd stay in, obviously, but our country, my gosh, 7 months of that, and now the world knows what we'd all whispered about. The media has kept covered up, or tried to keep cover up, and every time you'd bring it up, they'd say, "Oh, it's AI, that's all this other," and they're just co-conspirators in this whole thing. So,
it's sort of interesting to see this fighting inside the Democratic Party, because you don't see it too often. You had the infighting in the party with Kevin McCarthy, and that was, I guess, the last major issue. But now you've got these Democrats split on where they stand with Joe Biden. A new Emerson poll out today has Trump leading Joe Biden in 6 swing states, all by 3 points or more, except for Michigan. I mean, it looks like this is Trump's race to lose, with the exception of Biden getting out of the race and I guess floating Michelle Obama, which is constantly what you hear, which she says she wants nothing to do with it. Can't blame her. What is Trump's path forward? How big of a win do you see coming in November, for Congress, the Senate, and the White House?
Well, that's just it. I don't. I remembered when Bill Clinton, they came out that he was a draft dodger, which apparently he was, went to England, allegedly a Rhodes Scholar to study over there. I think and then used that to avoid the draft. And I thought, man, we've got him beat now. This guy, there's no way. He ends up winning. He won Tennessee, had Al Gore there. But still, they're playing checkers, we're playing chess. And that's why I think in the House we need to focus on our agenda and what we're going to pass and quit worrying about this presidential stuff, because what we say and do is going to have very little, if anything, to do with that. And we better worry about running our country, because America's watching, and the Democrats sure as heck are watching every move we make. And I think it's also pretty telling, too, that you're not seeing any of the up-and-comers in the House say they're going to run for president. They're putting their name in because they know how bad these policies are and what they've done to our country. I mean, immigration, just you name it, everything. And where we're at as a nation right now, inflation, those kind of things, because they've all voted 100% mostly with every one of Biden's agenda issues. And I know there's no path forward for any of them. The only one is Joe Biden. And but still, I still think the long shot is the governor of California, just because he's charismatic. He's run that state into the ground, but that doesn't seem to really matter to Democrats.
So you mentioned the Biden issues that he ran on, and obviously one of them, probably the biggest, is the open border. A new report out today from the National Immigration Center for Enforcement says that 99% of illegal aliens, border crossers, are living freely across American communities, with whatever they want to do, walking around. And they put that number at 17 million. We estimate it's probably a little bit higher than that, the gotaways that they don't like to count or even talk about. How do we come back from this? How do you come back from letting, we'll call it 20 million to be conservative, illegals coming into this country, now maybe looking to register to vote because the Democrats in the House want to let them? How do we ever come back from this, even with Trump winning in November? How do you save this country from all these illegals?
Yeah, the state of Tennessee is 7 million people, between 6 and 7. So just imagine that. Over probably, to me, it's insurmountable. Actually, you're going to have to. I think there's going to be a culling process of folks when they do something criminally, and I don't know. You're gonna enlist a bus line or a train system to haul people back to the border. I've talked about this immigration thing like a leaking boat. There's a group that just wants to bail constantly. But first, you got to stop the hole. And that's the border. And you've got to enforce our laws and get the wall built and get those things done. They wanted $4 or $5 billion to do that. And I see where it's costing just about, that's what they're paying just to take care of the illegals in New York. So, is their plan to bankrupt? I just think you've got some people, the puppet masters that are doing this, that are total anarchists and want to see this country fail because they hate everything about it. They hate our military. They hate our flag. They hate our traditions. They hate our God. They hate all of it. And they just want to see an input to it. And the media and a lot of folks in the national media are just co-conspirators in this whole thing.
Well, if there's anyone who's going to save us, it's going to be President Trump. We're talking with Congressman Tim Burchett. We're coming right back after these quick words. His House Oversight Committee is up to something, and they're further investigating the Biden crime family. But what is it? We'll tell you when we can return. Stay with us. We're coming right back.
Wellness Company and their doctors are medical professionals you can trust. And their new medical emergency kits are the gold standard when it comes to keeping you safe and healthy. This medical emergency kit contains an assortment of life-saving medications, including ivermectin, Z-Pak. Rest assured, knowing that you have emergency antibiotics, antivirals, and antiparasitics on hand to help you and your family stay safe from whatever life throws at you next.
right, we're back with Congressman Tim Burchett of Tennessee and member of the House Oversight Committee. Congressman, this week, House Oversight Chairman James Comer, he wants Dr. Kevin O'Connor, a White House physician, to come into the committee and have a transcribed interview. Can you tell us a little bit about what's going on?
Yeah, he is obviously involved in a lot of things, and I have I've written a letter actually before all that broke, dealing with him about the fact that he was involved with AmeriCorps, and they loaned James Biden $600,000, of which $200,000 of that was given to President Biden, and this is supposed to be his physician. I mean, the collusion is all over the place in this thing, and why the national media just is not just harping on this right now. I mean, it should be the nails in the coffin of this White House. But originally I was going to write a letter inviting him in to talk about the president's cognitive abilities, but he is so compromised that I think we need to invite a team of physicians in to do just that and analyze what's going on with this president, because this guy is totally in the tank. And I mean, the unethical nature of this whole thing, the money that goes back and forth. And really, and what bothers me most, I mean, we all know most of these guys are shady to get to these levels, to be here that long. They're, 3 or 4 houses and the planes and all the other, and the investments that getting 60% return every year kind of things. We know that goes on. But what really hacks me off about all that even further is the fact we don't have any proof that they paid any dadgum income tax.
Right.
I mean, what's going on in this country with the average American having to pay taxes on crazy stuff, and they just stack it on to us. And they say, we're going to tax the rich. But apparently, if you're rich and in government, you don't have to pay taxes, because they let the statutes run on a lot of this stuff already.
Right. It's the level of corruption you see out of this administration, out of the Biden family. I don't think it's one that you could actually script for a Hollywood. Maybe we should ask Adam Schiff. He's a screenwriter. It's something we could script for a movie. I mean, the levels of corruption you see in this family, in this administration, aren't even levels you saw in the 1970s with New York mob families. Now all of a sudden we have a White House physician involved in the Biden crime family. I mean, how much deeper does this run? Where does the committee move from here? Does Congressman Comer thinks it runs even deeper than a White House physician?
Well, everything Jamie Comer's brought forth, as you know, has been based on facts, and I've gone through a lot of these numbers and the corporations and the 20 some odd shell corporations they've put together, and I can't even remember how many bank accounts they've had to run this stuff. You and I have one bank account, or maybe two. Right. I have one for my campaign and one for my wife and I's personal account, and that's it. But they've double digits bank accounts, and what's going on with all this, and why are we not? And where is our Justice Department? I think until people keep saying, well, you're going to do this, and the Justice Department won't do anything, but that's their job, and that's on them, and we need to expose that as well and show to the American public all this facts and figures, and why in the world is this White House getting by with this? 2 sets of justice: the Biden crime family and the rest of America.
Congressman, real quick before we wrap up here, will we see criminal referrals for any of the Biden family members, any of the business partners, before this Congress wraps up in November?
We should, but I doubt it.
Congressman Tim Burchett, thank you so much.
Thank you, brother.
All right, we're all clear. Thank you so much for your time, Congressman. Really appreciate it.
It's been great, man. Thank you so much. And let Lou know I'll be praying for him. I hope he's doing well.
And thank you, everybody, for joining us here today. Be sure to join us tomorrow for the Great America Show. Our guest will be brilliant journalist and investigative reporter Lee Smith. Be sure to join Lou for Lou Dobbs Tonight each and every weeknight at an all-new time, 8 p.m. Eastern, on Roku, Rumble, X, and Frank's Speech. Thanks, everybody, for being with us. God bless you, and may God bless America.